We're getting towards that time of the year where a lot of people have lodged their tax returns. Hopefully you're one of the lucky people that were getting a tax refund. But what happens if you owe tax? Well, we're not going to be talking too much about what owe tax because you're just going to get a bill and you're going to need to pay it. But what happens if you receive a letter from the ATO that says you're getting introduced to the PAYG system? What is that? How does it work? Can you give me an example? And can you get out of it? I'm going to explain all of that today. So first, let's look at what the PAYG system is. So it is the pay-as-you-go tax system. And what pretty much happens is the ATO say, you owed us money, and therefore in a future year, we expect you're going to owe us money as well, and now we want to start collecting this in advance. So this typically happens when you've got something in your tax return that's not having tax withheld on it throughout the year, or maybe you've got something where you aren't getting enough tax withheld. So common things are like if you've got a business or if you've got high interest income or other investment income, that means you owe tax. The ATO now introduces you to the PAYG system. And that is because they want you to pay in advance, very similar to what happens with your employment income. They want to be in a situation where they're collecting it from you up front so that you're not left with a large bill and they're not left having to chase you for this large bill. So let's go through an example. So we'll say in the 2023/2024 year, you owed $4,000 of tax. So what's going to happen? You're going to be sent a notice of assessment which will have the details of this payment. If you were lucky enough that you lodged through an agent, you might have lodged your return in August, and you're going to owe that tax by March next year. So you still need to pay your $4,000 by that due date or put a payment plan in place. But now the ATO go, we think in 24/25, you're also going to owe around $4,000. We want you to now pay us in advance. So what they're going to do is first send you a letter that says you're being introduced to the PAYG system. They'll explain why, they'll explain some details of your prior year return and what you can expect. Now, these letters are quite often just delivered by your MyGov account, so you need to make sure if you get an email that says you have a new letter in your MyGov account, you actually go and check it. Your tax agent won't even get sent this, it'll go directly to you. Then what happens is you will get an installment each quarter. So we have July to September, October to December, January to March, and April to June. And each quarter you'll get an installment. Now, these installments likely should be the same amount, but I have seen them vary a little bit from quarter to quarter. Logic says the ATO are going to set this installment at around the $1,000 mark because they said you owed $4,000 in year one. We assume in year two you're going to owe another $4,000, so we want to collect $1,000 from you every single quarter. So for the first quarter, which is July to September, you'll get this notification in your MyGov account, or you can ask your tax agent to check that you now owe this installment. This comes through in late September, so around about the time I'm uploading this video, and this will be due by the end of October, so about the 28th of each month after the end of the quarter. And you'll need to now pay this installment. Now, this installment is for your 24/25 tax return, not towards your debt for your prior year that you owed for. And that's where a lot of people get confused. They say, well, is this going towards the $4,000 I owe? No, this is for your next year. The $4,000 you owe is irrelevant to this. You need to pay that in full, and you now need to pay these installments. So logic says if you go and pay these 4 installments, you've now paid $4,000 of extra tax throughout the year. This is the same as the tax that gets withheld on any other income item, such as your employment income. Come end of the year, let's assume everything was the same as 2023/2024, and you still had those same business profits, for instance, that would have put you in the situation where you owed an extra $4,000 of tax, but you've now paid $4,000 through the year, so logic says you'll come out about square. And that's what the ATO are aiming to do with the PAYG system, is get you to pay in advance so you don't end up with a large tax bill. Now, before I get into what happens if you want to vary this or to get out of the system, first let me talk to you about my newsletter that I drop. Every single week, I drop a newsletter where I give you tax tips for free to help you better understand tax, maximize your tax position, and hopefully just give you a better understanding of how you can get the most out of your taxes. I'd love you to join. It's free to join. The link is in the description to this video. Now let's get back into the video. So what happens if you don't want to pay these? What can you actually do? What about if your situation's changed? So you can vary these installments. Now, the catch is though, you can't just vary them back down to zero if you are going to owe the tax again. The ATO definitely do not like this. I've seen a client try and do this and the ATO just reversed it and said, no, you need to pay this amount, and started charging him interest when he didn't pay it. So you definitely need to be careful in that situation. But if your situation has changed, for instance, maybe you no longer run the business that made the profits, you can vary the installments to say that there has been a significant change, or you've changed your trading entity and therefore this entity, such as your individual return, isn't going to owe tax again. So you definitely can do that, or you can even vary them just to a lower amount if you know maybe you had a really good year the prior year and you know that this year isn't going to be very good. And you can do this at any time across any of the 4 installments. So maybe you think things are going really well and you pay the first 3 installments in full, and now it gets towards the last installment, the April to June one, and you realize profits are actually going to be way less. You've had a really bad back half of the year. You can vary that installment. You can actually vary them down low enough where you'd actually get credits back for prior ones you've paid. It does get complicated, so you probably want to speak to your tax agent to make sure you understand what's going on, what are the ramifications for varying these, and why you're actually doing it. The PAYG system is quite controversial. A lot of people don't really like it, especially people that normally would just pay their tax bill in full. But I also understand why the ATO have it, because they do chase a lot of large debts from people and they want to collect these in advance. They can make things a bit complicated to understand which year do you owe for, but the clearest way that I can try and explain it is to say, if you owe tax, you're going to need to pay that tax bill in full, and the PAYG system is for the current year that you're in, not anything to do with the prior year. Now, a lot of the time that people end up on the PAYG system is because they've had small business profits. In this upcoming video, I talk about sole traders and why a lot of sole traders do end up in the situation where they owe the tax office money.